Now that we know with sessions, we can store a variable that lasts as long as the user has our website open in their browser. This is pretty good, but sometimes we might want to keep them logged in for longer. And for that, we would use cookies. Now, cookies have got themselves a bit of a bad reputation, mostly because they're often used to track users as they go around the web. But we'll be using them for a completely legitimate purpose of keeping our users logged into our website after they've closed the browser. So let's see how we use cookies in PHP. I'm going to go back to our index.php and get rid of all of this, as we won't be using it again. So with cookies, they work quite differently to sessions. We don't need to start a cookie session or anything like that. We just use the set cookie function to create a cookie. And then we give the cookie a variable name. So that might be something like customer ID. And then we give it a value. So that might be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the difference between a session variable is that with a cookie, we need to give an expiry date. So that can be any time in the future. And the usual way to do this is to use the time command to get the current time on the server. And that will return a big number in seconds. And then we just add to that the number of seconds that we want it to last. So if we want our cookie to last 24 hours, for example, then we'd take 60 seconds multiplied by 60. So that gives us the number of seconds in an hour, and then 24 hours. So that cookie would expire in a day's time. If we want to keep it there for 5 days, we'd multiply that by 5. If we wanted to keep it there for a year, then we'd multiply by 365. So let's keep our cookie down to a day for now. And once we've set our cookie, we can access it in the usual way. So we'd use something like cookie to get the cookie array, and then customer ID. So let's have a look. And there we go. So you can see we've got the cookie value. And of course, if we comment out the cookie, we can still use it there. And if I shut down that browser tab completely, open up a new one and find my page, the cookie value will still be there. And that's pretty much all there is to it, except I do want to show you how to remove a cookie when necessary. So if the user logs out of your website, you're going to want to delete that cookie permanently. And there's a slightly counterintuitive way of doing that. And what you do is you set cookie again with the same name. And it really doesn't matter what value you put here, but for reasons that I'll explain in a minute, it's best to put an empty string for the value. And then you just put a time in the past. So it can be any time in the past, but I normally use an hour in the past just to be sure. And that's it. So that will essentially unset the cookie, but it will only unset it on the next load of the page. So be aware of that. You can see it's still displayed the cookie, even though we've officially got rid of it there. But if we run that script again, then you can see it doesn't exist. That customer ID is undefined. So bear in mind that when you remove a cookie like that, it doesn't remove until the next page load. And you will have noticed as well that it still gave the value of 1, 2, 3, 4, not an empty value. So this empty string just reminds us that we're not actually updating the value of the cookie. We're not actually changing it at all. We're just changing the time that it expires. So if you want to update the value of the cookie, then you would just use it in the normal way. So let's change it to test, and let's create our cookie in the future. And if we now do that, you can see that we've updated the value there. So to update the value of the cookie, you just do that in the way that you would a get or a post or any array variable, and that will update immediately. But if you want to get rid of it, then you set it in the past, but bear in mind it'll take 2 refreshes of the page for it to disappear. There we go. So that's how to work with cookies. We've now just got one more video to go before we begin our big PHP and MySQL project, the Secret Diary web app. And in this last video, I'll show you how to store your users' passwords securely.